Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. As we do with all board meetings, we will soon begin with an instant challenge, but we'll get to that in a moment. I call the April 22nd, 2024 school board meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. We are in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Ave. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Dr. Hoyt? Here. Ms. Willis?
Excused.
Dr. Worley?
Here.
Ms. Heimer-Walland?
Excused.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Dr. Jessefinger?
Here. We do have a quorum this evening. We are going to start out with some really fun recognitions of a variety of different areas that our school district is excelling at, and I'm really excited to share each of these. The first is a recognition of culinary students who attended the 2024 Sand Valley Festival. We have 2 first place winners. They won out of 175 submissions. And this was a really fun opportunity that students in the culinary program at West both competed in and did really well. There was a lot of fun social media updates on this one if you were following along at all online. The teacher is Carly Joseph. Ms. Joseph, are you here tonight? Would you like to come up and share a little bit about the competition and introduce the students?
Yeah, so essentially,
And would you mind coming up to them? Sorry.
oh, sure, that's fine.
Then the people at home can hear
Where do I go? Like
the microphone, or you could sit down.
There's time, so. And I'm really short, so that's not gonna help, but. So pretty much what it is the ProStart is a national program that runs culinary curriculum, but they also provide different optional opportunities depending on what the school district and what the school and what the teacher want to do. And so one of these is called the monthly ProStart Challenge. So at Tosa West and now this year at Tosa East, we subscribe to the monthly challenges. And we pick and choose which ones we want to do. We do them most months as long as they like fit in with everything and there are things that we want to do with the kids. And the October challenge was Battle of the Brats. So that was, and they're different every month. So like one we're going to do this Wednesday, Thursday is a mac and cheese challenge. So different things like that. But out of the 175 submissions, we got first place. And so that we already got like prizes and stuff like that. But then we were able to, I got an email in like December asking if as a result of winning that, if we would showcase the brat in a festival at the Sand Valley Golf Resort. So we got to stay there the entire weekend and we cooked with all the head chefs in the back and all the people in the lines. And it was awesome. We did over 250 samples of our brat. So it was really, really fun.
Congratulations. And the 2 students are Franco Harris and Adriana Donicos.
Yes, they were gonna be here.
Well, let's give them a big round of applause. Congratulations to you, to them, and all the other students in the program. It's a neat thing to see, and I know a lot of neat things are happening in the programs of both West and East. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you happen to bring samples?
We have one of the last 5 out of 6 ProStart challenges that we haven't entered, so. Well, in the winning circle, say.
Next up is Destination Imagination and a whole lot of teams and students who are going to be going to Globals. I will share that not too long ago, I got a chance to go to Globals as well. And you are all going to have a fantastic time. Is everyone prepared for pin trading? Okay, fantastic. Could I get any of the parent managers to come up and share? If one of you could, I could do it, but it's more fun to have you do it. If one parent manager or 2 parent managers could come up and share a little bit about for the community, what is Destination Imagination and what's DI Globals?
So my name is Jen Litzow, and I'm one of the coordinators for the program here at Tosa in the district. And this is...
Hi, I'm Matt Frederick. I'm a team manager for a couple of DI teams.
So we have 5 different groups that qualified for Globals. They all competed at the sectional tournament. And you have to place in the top 3 in order to advance to Globals. And it's pretty exciting. So there's 4 that are coming from Longfellow and 1 from WSD. Wilson STEM. Yo, sorry, Wilson. Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, this is really exciting right now. The kids are doing some fundraising and getting prepared for the tournament, and it's just a once in a lifetime kind of thing.
And I want to pronounce this really carefully. If anybody sees a neighbor who's been flocked,
Oh yeah.
do you want to share a little bit about that fundraiser?
Well, okay, so we're not doing it. Our team is not doing it, but there's a couple other teams that are doing it. And from my understanding, I think a bunch of flamingos are put in people's yard. And then in order to remove the flamingos, you have to, you don't have to, but you are encouraged to donate towards the team. And then they'll come and they'll pull them out of your yard and go flock somebody else.
I was flocked yesterday.
Yeah, actually, I did see your house was flocked.
Yep, I was flocked yesterday. Super fun. The kids are really stealthy and they get all the flamingos in your yard when you don't see them. And the flamingos are decorated in fun ways with like one of ours had a Batman cape on and was in their DI era. So super fun way to celebrate all of our teams that are going to globals and then to also help with the fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think I said this, but it's a STEM program. So I should actually say STEAM. But it's just a way for kids to, it's like an extracurricular activity that kids do after school. And then they work on like a specific challenge. You can do engineering, technical, science, fine arts, improvisational. And then there's actually a service learning project as well. And then the kids, most of the challenges, what they do is they, like say if this year they did technical was one of them. So the kids had to build like a pinball machine and then they would create like a performance around the pinball machine. And within their performance, they have to add all these different elements. And it's pretty cool. And it changes every year.
Great.
Is there any-
A big thank you to the managers and to the coordinators who do a ton of work. The interesting thing about Destination Imagination is parents can't help. So they can teach young adults and young children skills, but they can't do anything for them. And so it is such a great opportunity for kids to learn and fail repeatedly and have fun doing it. And you can tell when a parent has helped because it looks a lot different than the creativity and not as interesting as when the kids themselves did it. Can I ask, is there any brave souls among our DI team members? Anybody one or two that want to come up and share one or two things that you've learned this year about how to work together or maybe something interesting with your challenge?
Why don't we get one person from each team?
That would be
great, or two people. It's fine.
I want to hear all about it.
Okay, we're doing the scientific challenge. I can't do that. Okay, does this come off? There we go.
Can't help you. It's
Well, I'm Mabel. I'm April and this is Sadie. Hello. We're doing the scientific challenge, which is called Blast from the Past this year. And we have to make a puppet, like a functioning puppet. Our puppet is like as tall as me. And I wear it and I walk around with it and it's really big. It's called a body puppet.
outstanding. Thank you very much.
My name is Lily and my team's doing the improv challenge. This is Rachel. And basically we have to create a story along with costumes and intensifiers and characters in 2 minutes and then present it. And something I learned this year was that you can do the best when you play with everyone's strengths and work together instead of just doing it yourself.
Yeah, and something cool, like we've been working on this for the last few months, and we've each had to, there's 10 different, they call them stock characters that we've all had to practice, acting in and like really idolizing that persona that you're playing. So that's been something like really cool to learn because I've never done anything really along those lines before. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ellie and I'm Annabelle, and we're also doing Blast from the Past. We well, we needed also to construct a puppet, and our puppet was named Fernando. Yeah, and Ellie plays the puppet. It was fun. He's definitely a little quirky, but we learned also about a lot of team working and how to work together. We also learned about like leadership, because there's some things where more than one person has to help, and there's some things where like only one person has to help. So then you have to decide, you have to like take in consideration what other people want and see what you should do. Hi, I'm Madeline. Our team also did Blast from the Past, and we really learned a lot because we had to do extensive research and work hard and revise things several times. But I think that helped us do better at it. Hi, my name's Eleanor. I'm Charlie. And we're also doing the improvisational challenge that also Lily and Rachel did. So we learned to think on the spot and come up with like cool ideas like on the spot and work together as a group and a lot more throughout this project. And I think it really helped us with, you know, our talking in front of people and like stuff like that. Yeah, and we had to really like take leadership in and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Congratulations to everybody for making it to Globals, and have a great time. So tonight, so far, we've honored students in a culinary program, a lot of students across different schools doing STEAM work. And then we've got the German program, our foreign languages. And so it really talks about, I think, captures the breadth of all the neat things going on here. So Amelia Regini is here with her teacher, Eva Twinstra. And there's a really, do you want to share briefly a little bit about the program? It's a really big honor and a really great opportunity, and maybe something that these young scholars want to aspire to as they think about their time in foreign languages in the district.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us here tonight. This is Amelia. She's in our German 4 class. Every year since I've been a German teacher here, which has been a really long time, and actually 60 years total, the American Association of Teachers of German has offered the National German exam. I have to be a member, the teacher has to be a member in order for students to be able to take it. And every year we have a number of prize winners, medals, certificates, and then eventually money. We combined this with another contest through the German Speech and Language Association, and that's an essay test. Students have 30 minutes to write a 5-paragraph essay on a given topic, which is hard enough in English for some students, and here they're doing it in German. And they do it voluntarily. So they all just step forward and say, I'd like to try this. And without hesitation, Amelia tried this. On the National German exam itself, she scored into the 96th percentile, 96 percentile. And when you're above 90%, you can then take a number of steps to say that you're interested in going on an all expense paid trip to Germany. So why don't you describe that process, what you had to go through?
Okay. So after you score high enough on that, like the National German exam, you're given the opportunity to do a couple essay style questions, some in German and some in English, about why you would want to get the opportunity to go to Germany. So I did some of those, and then once you submit that, you do an interview with some German professors and different like German language speakers from across the state. And then they pick, I believe it was 5 students from across the state to recommend to get into the national round. And then in the national round, you take another test called the STAMP test, which measures your proficiency in your language. And if you like score high enough in that, then they take all of your scores in the STAMP, the National German exam, letters of recommendation from like teachers, and your responses to those essay style questions. And the board of the National German exam meets and decides who wins the like all expense paid trip to Germany. So there's 37 students nationwide.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Amelia will be honored on Sunday, May 5th. it's May 5th, at the award ceremony for the National German exam. It'll be at Marquette High School. There will be, again, certificates and medals and then some monetary prizes given out. We have 8 other students who finished a little bit lower, but are also receiving big recognition. And then we also had our German day competition at UW-Madison, and our students did really well at that. We had 3rd place out of 17. So I think it's been kind of just a banner year for our German department in terms of accomplishments and success and things that we can be very proud of. These kids, especially Amelia, I'd like to call her out because she's somebody who really puts in the time, like a lot of you have, and does the work that's assigned and asks really great questions and really sees the big picture and tries to put it all together and make sense of German. So I appreciate that. She's a really great person to work with as a teacher. So thanks for having us.
Congratulations and congratulations to the department. As is the case with all board meetings, you are welcome to stay. However, you are also welcome to not stay if that is your preference. We'll understand either way. Congratulations to everybody, and it was absolutely great to have all of you in the room tonight.
Thank you so much.
See you later. Where's the news media when you won?
I don't got some people tonight.
Must be your good games.
I never heard of Destination Imagination before.
I don't know if it was because.
Yeah, I think it's a more recent.
Just started to get.
I only did Future City.
Okay. But yes.
Interesting.
Our next item up is public comment. Members of the Wauwatosa School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into debate with a member or members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. Is there any public comment in the room this evening? Welcome.
I am keenly aware of the budgetary crisis looming over our district due solely to the failure of our state legislature to adequately fund our schools. I'm also aware that the people who are experiencing the greatest impact from the underfunding of our schools simply do not have the resources or capacity to effectively advocate for change. Yet I've been told repeatedly that if I want the needs of our most vulnerable students and families to be met, I have to do more. I'm already doing more. More appointments, more therapies, more meetings, paperwork, phone calls, medications, more odd jobs to make ends meet, more duct tape added to my car to hold it together so it lasts a little longer because I can't afford another. And I do all of it with less financial resources, less access to childcare, less support from family, friends, and the community, a privilege we never talk about. 1 in 4 students in our district is economically disadvantaged. Over 60% of households in the US live paycheck to paycheck, and we can't handle any more tasks on our already overloaded plates. When I unintentionally discovered that our current lunch debt is roughly $50,000 and nearly half of that is due to be sent to collections, which could then cause a family's tax refund to be intercepted, I was disgusted. I didn't realize we were quite that close to Waukesha, but I'm thankful to know what to expect in my future. In no way do I want to pit anyone against one another, but it truly feels like no one here has our back. Anytime we've asked for anything budgetary, I'm told the low dollar amounts we're asking for only put a Band-Aid on our problem, yet when nearly identical dollar amounts are proposed in other areas, I'm told the impact of not funding our most affluent budgetary categories would have disastrous results. I struggle to believe that $25,000 cut from certain portions of our budget would barely be noticeable to those receiving the funds, yet that same amount could be incredibly impactful for those who won't be sent to collection simply for their kids needing food. When I ask for non-budgetary items to focus on family engagement, DEIA, DISPRO, the difficult conversations we need to have, I'm told our staff doesn't have the capacity. It is not a matter of capacity, it's a matter of priority. We are repeating what started in 2016 with discussions on equity, which got swept aside for new curriculum, new pay scales, and a new referendum. If you need to pander for votes to pass a referendum, that's fine. So please stop giving me false hope that I or any of my children will ever matter in this district. Stop telling me that we will be reflected in your budgets later, and stop saying that we will ever make it onto your calendars and into your scope of capacity. I'm tired of feeling like a burden to the staff here. It doesn't cost anything to support anyone. A text or email takes 30 seconds, a phone call just a few minutes, but my phone has remained silent since we got here. And every day that passes is a reminder that the biggest deficit we face is not financial or capacity. It's basic human decency.
Is there any other public comment in the room this evening? Jamie, is there any public comment online?
No, there are no hands raised.
We will then move into our consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action?
It is recommended that the school board approve the consent agenda, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any board comment or questions on the consent agenda? I have one comment on the consent agenda. There was a question specifically about the removal of the board ethics policy that I received in the last couple of days. I checked in with Dr. Worley, Dr. Means checked in with Dr. Zimmern, both confirming that the board ethics policy is actually becoming a part of another policy that's already in place. And so not going anywhere in terms of the same information is included in our bylaws. It's just being situated in a separate policy subpoint. So not a removal, just a reorganization.
Yeah, already passed.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And the consent agenda passes. The next item is strategic goal 4, high quality staff, action to approve the 24-25 school year staffing.
Thank you.
Ms. Hammer Roland, do you by chance have this one up?
It is recommended that the school board approve the 24-25 school year staffing plan, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hoyt. Ms. Elizowski.
Good evening. Thank you. I bring before you this evening the follow-up to our conversation on April 9th, which is the recommendation to approve our staffing plan. When we met the last time, I talked about the importance of this staffing plan in terms of defining not only our financial plan, but our academic plan carried out by all of our employees, as well as our hiring plan and the steps we need to take to be ready for the 2024-25 school year. I don't have anything to add unless there are questions.
I know the board has had opportunity to ask questions in between the meeting when we went over this and had a pretty extensive conversation 2 weeks ago. Any final board questions or comments on this one this evening? One of the things I shared out with the board, about maybe a month and a half ago, is if on different votes, if you ever want to kind of share while you're voting, feel free to do so. Otherwise,
I'll make one comment if I may. And I know a lot of districts are facing a critical time right now as their ESSER funds expire and they have to make decisions on cutting ESSER funded positions. And luckily we weren't in a position where we were heavily reliant on ESSER funds, but that the majority of the positions and only a few that we will be keeping are student facing positions that
the building principals have, I think, time and time again said that they need them in the building to support our students, to increase the outcomes. And so thank you. Thank you for that breakdown, Dr. Means. And, I'm just grateful that we are in this position, that we have been. A lot of districts are going to have to make some really tough decisions this next budget year with cuts due to ESSER. So thank you for the information.
Yeah, I second Ms. Willis's thanks for your team coming to us so early in the process. A lot of districts aren't lucky enough to see the proposed staffing plan halfway through the second semester of the year, so I appreciate that work. I also understand that your division sort of controls much of what our budget spends are, because 80% of our budget is spent on staff and the people who work with our students. So it's wonderful to kind of know what big spend we're going to have as we start looking at the rest of the budget. And knowing that you've been really creative in slight classroom size increases, and that has saved the district a lot of FTE. So being able to have you and your team not only puts us, ahead in the year, but it saves us a considerable amount of money. So I appreciate that. So thank you to you and your team for all you do.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes, and the staffing plan passes. Next is action to approve the non-Wauwatosa Education Association staff compensation recommendation. Mr. Morris.
It is recommended that the school board approve the non-Wauwatosa Education Association staff compensation recommendations, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Ms. Hammer-Rowan. Ms. Zelazowski, anything to update us on this one?
I would reiterate what we discussed at the April 9th meeting related to the progress that we are making with our compensation to be more competitive when we look at our peers in the area. We looked the last time at where we're at from a variety of support staff perspectives. One of the questions that I've had since that meeting was, where does that put us at from an administrative standpoint? So I did also capture some of those comparisons as well for our district administrative positions, elementary principals, and then associate principals, both the high school and middle school level. And so you can see, again, what those average salaries look like to average salaries in our area. And again, especially in regards to our associate principal positions, we have a very talented group of administrators who will be our future bench when it comes to building leadership roles. And we would certainly like to keep them and keep growing their expertise.
Any board questions or comments on this item? Dr. Hoig.
Not so much a question, but a comment. Again, thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for continuing to think about retention and what that takes in 2024, which is different than what things looked like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I just want to highlight for people who maybe didn't watch last meeting or maybe didn't look through these slides as closely, that our educators are still at the 9 of 13 spots. So they're the 9th position out of 13 positions regionally. So our educators, despite the raise that they've been given, the 12% last year, we are still underfunding our educators who now have many, many opportunities to go to other districts if that's what they choose to do. Districts that are likely higher paying. I also really appreciated that you brought forward the slide that talks about how much it costs the district when we don't retain educators, which is 150% of a salary when an educator leaves. So it's incredibly costly for us to have these turnovers, to have these lost positions. So it's not ultimately saving us money to kind of like nickel and dime and try not to fund our educators at the level that they should be funded. So again, I just want to say thank you for that and affirm that I absolutely am voting yes for this.
Dr. Worley.
Building on that, I want to also, besides this being very data-driven, so thank you for that. I want to note that besides the costs of losing staff and building leaders and educational assistants and financially, there are high costs on the community in the building. The students pay a high cost for having a revolving door of support people and building leaders. And I think where we can retain, it is a worthy investment. So I also really appreciate what you've put together, and I look forward to supporting this. So.
Call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes. And that item passes. Next up is action to approve the recommended agreement between the Wauwatosa School District and the Wauwatosa Education Association.
It is recommended that the school board approve the recommended agreement between the Wauwatosa School District and the Wauwatosa Education Association, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Wills.
Yes, thank you. So in the agenda for this evening, as well as the recommendations, we are affirming or recommending that we approve the collective bargaining agreement for base wage increases for our teachers who are represented by the Wauwatosa Education Association. So again, just in making sure that we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's related to collective bargaining rules in Wisconsin, it's appropriate to have the teachers in a separate motion. We are looking at an average 4% increase, which is 1% on the schedule and a one-step movement for our teachers, which, as Dr. Hoig pointed out, brings us from the bottom of the first quartile to the top of the first quartile for area teacher salaries.
Board questions or comments on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes. This item passes. Thank you all very much. Ms. Zalazowski, you've done an incredible amount of work, both certainly this year and over the last few years, to address a lot of things around salary and the timing of all this I know is quite early, and it'll give us a chance to begin hiring now. And hopefully have some really outstanding educators that we can recruit into the district. So thank you for your incredible work.
Thank you.
Next up is strategic goal 5, culture and climate, discussion of Edmentum. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Edmentum, virtual platform and contracts.
While we're sharing our screen, I would like to introduce two people for you. To my right, we have Dean Hoyce, who is our principal of all things county programs, alternative education. And to his right is Ben Bunke. Ben is one of our champions teachers. And Ben is quickly becoming our Edmentum expert in the district as we've piloted it in different spaces this year. Ben is also really uniquely poised to speak to this today because he also previously worked in WVA where they were utilizing the Pearson platform. So he's here certainly to answer questions you might have as well from the teacher experience of Edmentum. We wanted to start by just kind of explaining the why behind a shift. Ultimately, this is a student-centered decision. Moving from Pearson to Edmentum really helps with our alignment across the district and better opportunities for students, especially students who might move in and out of different spaces within our system, in and out of virtual, possibly into credit recovery in the high schools, champions, that kind of thing. It would be a consistent, continuous experience for them in terms of what they're moving through alternatively. Another large reason for this is WVA has been identified by the joint federal notifications as a comprehensive school of improvement for graduation rates. So we know if we want to get different results, we have to do something different and make some audacious, brave changes. And this is one of those steps. Dean will be speaking a little bit about WVA and some of that as well. We also have a greater ability to modify and adapt curricular content to meet student needs with Edmentum than we did with our previous system. And then the board will appreciate, in a slide later, we'll show you the significant financial savings that this move will also offer us. So it's good for students, good for adults, good for the system, and really good for our financial situation as well. And it's a very similar student experience to Pearson. The level of support they're able to access, the level of a live teacher, a lot of that is consistent. So the experience for the child will not be very drastically different. In terms of the process, as you know, last year, we had a multidisciplinary team that was really looking at alternative pathways for students. Coming in 2 years ago, we knew this was a great need. There wasn't a lot of options for students. Out of that committee came the Champions program, which has been very successful. Again, Ben's front lines for the Champions, he sees our high school students. And we had a project team, or we had a committee that had several project teams. Dr. Marble helped lead up the curriculum side of that project team and did really an environmental scan. What is being used out there? What is used in surrounding districts? What is being shown to be effective? Met with different representatives to learn more, explored platforms, trialed them out, and then ultimately conducted a decision analysis based on our needs, which you can see the criteria in the executive summary for tonight. And then professional learning took place once Edmentum was the clear winner in that decision analysis. And we trained our Champions teachers and launched Edmentum with Champions this fall. Feedback was very positive, and then we started looking through and discussing the application of credit recovery. As it stands, prior to the second semester, there really were no credit recovery efforts in our high school, which is not typical. If you think about the need we have for GED options 2 or other alternative pathways, that need is only greater when you don't have the ability to recoup credits early on with that focus on underclassmen. And then in the fall of 23-24, we really launched the credit recovery pilot at West and Bell Phillips. More professional learning took place. And then semester 2, we are launching the credit recovery pilot at West and Bell Phillips as well. Spring of 2024, we are looking at how we can scale that out in summer school as well as in the fall for both high schools. So there's a lot of conversations happening there in doing that in an FTE neutral kind of way, where the teachers will have the expertise that are running Edmentum credit recovery courses. So if a student's taking an algebra or geometry course, right now we're looking at being able to utilize our existing FTEs. So the expertise in that core content area is still there. And all this kind of is coming together when we look at the alternative pathways for students. Again, it was quite a bit disjointed, different programs, different platforms. So when I say it's better for students, truly there is a bit of movement and fluidity when it comes to virtual. This would be a cleaner and more consistent experience for the students. Dean will tell you a little bit about WVA. Again, the platform's being used in multiple capacities. The contract that you'll see linked in the executive summary, the bulk of it is for WVA. The rest of it is for Champions and credit recovery.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I've spoke about WB in the past, so I kind of boiled things down to about 4 different bullet points for this evening. First off, pretty fortunate that Wauwatosa Schools as a district had an online school and option going into COVID. As you know, during the COVID year, we also had a homegrown organic options in the district. So in some ways, it was like an embarrassment of riches in terms of the options that our families had. But WVA had existed before COVID, and it's existing now. And we're fortunate when we talk about platforms that we have staff to support the delivery method, be it the online learning system and even the provider teachers, to have a local face to also support that effort. It goes beyond just the stuff that's over a laptop or even a provider teacher. And for us currently at WVA, that means that we have 2 special education teachers, 1 special education assistant, a 0.8 school counselor we share with another school program, and 2 guide teachers that we currently have. Currently, we're meeting a variety of needs and circumstances, sometimes IEP driven, sometimes discipline, medical, family, intra-district transfers, students who are choosing the virtual option. I've pictured it as sort of the Swiss Army knife. We serve a lot of different needs: homeless, gifted and talented, school-age parent, a whole lot. And going to the realm of the intra-district transfer, we've largely been seeing a pretty big uptick in mental health and social emotional needs. That is just a thing. Families with burdens that are more than a student can bear and looking for any sort of option, possibly while they're handling what they need to handle and coping the best way they know how. So within the past 2 years, WBA enrollment has shifted from primarily a statewide open enrolled program to now more and more students who are basically Wauwatosa resident students choosing WBA as an option. So they've been coming from our own brick and mortar schools versus statewide. And to visually show that, and anytime I present about WVA, the numbers, even though we updated this just on the 10th of April, numbers are always changing and numbers are always increasing at any point in the school year. So this just gives a snapshot of who we are, who we serve. You're going to see that big 91 green slice, high school residents part-time. So this could be students who are just taking 1 or 2 classes for a variety of reasons. Graduation requirements, maybe an offering we don't have in our high schools and they're taking out of interest. To Mr. Pinion's point, sometimes it is like a de facto credit recovery or trying it in a different modality as they're trying to keep pace with graduation requirements. And again, this second slide, not to overwhelm with enrollment, but I just wanted to point out too, just the slice of students with IEPs, both students that we serve who are full-time with us. We also have part-time students who may have a case manager who's in the building, but we're supporting those online classes and we kind of tag team and share duties with those case managers, as well as students who may have been placed with us via administrative hearing or previously had an administrative hearing, just trying to support their return to the quasi-school environment. And sometimes it's a virtual environment.
All right, the last bit of good news is the financial savings this brings to the board and the district. We ran a 5-year average of what we spent on Pearson. And again, we put all the facts on the table, look at all the data in terms of outcomes we're getting, the cost it was per student. We excluded 2020, 2021. That year was over $2 million because of the influx from COVID going to WVA. The 5-year average is $706,000 that was renewed about annually per year. And you can see the totals we're asking for approval with this new contract with Admentum saves us just shy of $323,000. We welcome your questions.
Very familiar with Edmonton. I think also called Apex. Maybe it's more like that program. So my first questions, I think, especially looking at the number of students we serve with IEPs, what are the functions within Edmonton that allow you to meet the students' accommodations, whether it's guided notes or reading out loud? I don't know if any of you are well versed in it enough to kind of describe what kind of access our students with disabilities has as far as their accommodations.
Ben, do you want to start? And then I can have Dr. Marvel if she learned some things at all during the project team.
I heard you ask about like a read aloud option.
Sure.
Edmonton does have, sorry.
There's online.
Yeah.
Edmonton does have a read aloud feature. So any content on screen is able to be read or the students able to hear it through their headphones or through speakers. There are also like guided notes that students can print out ahead of time, which is very, very useful as well. And really just with Pearson, to make modifications, we had to go through the Pearson teacher. So Pearson teachers are all over the country, Texas, California.
Yeah.
If you want to adapt something on the fly with Pearson, you would literally have to reach out to that Pearson teacher. I like to think that the host teacher on the ground knows students best. we can make students like in real time, the best support the student. I think it's one of the biggest advantages.
So you have the opportunity to adjust the content that they're getting to meet their needs.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, and the added benefit of our students in WVA that will be using Edmentum will still have their special ed case manager as well in WVA. So it's sort of an added layer that can help navigate that too.
My other kind of question along those same lines, like how interactive is it, right? Because I know, especially, we talk about students just with various learning needs, whether they're gifted, whether they have, they're served under a special needs category, dyslexic, like sit and get can be really hard for anybody, right? I don't care if I didn't even realize you guys served elementary school students, but I don't care if you're an elementary school student or a high school student. Is there still like a level of interaction between like what the student does, or does it all just sit and get?
There is some level of interaction. A lot of the classes have like discussion assignments. So if you have 10 kids enrolled in the same class, it's like an online discussion board. The teacher can also like submit their own comment, their own feedback as well. So the discussion boards are a big way for students to interact. A lot of the content is delivered through what they call like tutorials, which is a video presentation. And what I try to do is supplement that in addition to what the video shows as well. So there is ways to do that.
Yep, and I would add, it will look different in WVA, and the contract reflects this in the pricing. Our WVA students will have what's called Ed Options, which is still access to a live teacher through Edmentum, which that option we don't have in Champions or Credit Recovery because our teachers are there delivering it and supporting it as well. So it's a little bit different for our online students.
I've had experience with this and it has been positive. So, I just hope we have the people in place, right? It's, it can be great for a lot of reasons. Like you said, credit recovery. Maybe you only need 1 or 2 classes to graduate because something disrupted your time in high school and you have the opportunity to take it online. But I just want to make sure there's kind of that like face-to-face and interaction for some of our students who are in WVA or even taking it virtually for any reason. Because I think you learn best, of course, but there's some students I'm sure that thrive and they don't want to be in a traditional classroom environment and they're able to sit there and do it independently. But glad to hear that there's that piece of it. And 2, I was glad to hear, I know there's a big push for career readiness and I'm hoping, that I know Mr. Griffey's amazing and I've worked with him just in my role, but even doing like industry credentialing or youth recognized apprenticeships that you have to take courses that align with that. And I know that Edmentum is a great program to help offer courses to our students who need those to fulfill those requirements. So great. Thank you.
Well, I think sometimes too, when we talk about students who are taking classes, maybe part-time, I think about students who might have an interesting schedule that they need because they're doing launch. So now you have a little bit of give. You're not locked into this. And I think in my head, that's where the potential really lies. Even if we're looking into more and more brick and mortar based kind of asynchronous thinking a little bit. So you can kind of have that give for students to have some of those experiences.
Yeah.
And having a virtual option just gives enough space where you can think about scheduling a different way, potentially.
So that gives me a question. Does the price, is it by student, right? So if we do have more students enrolling for various reasons, whether it is because they want to participate in launch or participate in a youth apprenticeship and then they need to take a course virtually, will our price go up?
It's by concurrent seat is sort of the language that they use, meaning you get X amount of seats for the year, and that's how many students can access it concurrently. So if a student leaves WVA, now we've got 1 more open concurrent seat.
Sure. Okay. And so what is our numbers?
We projected it's likely in the linked contract. I don't have it up right now, but it should be right in the contract that's linked in the executive summary.
So it still gives us some flexibility if students.
Absolutely, yeah. And we have the ability, should we hit a threshold, to look at that given the sheer number of savings that we're looking at as well.
And just to clarify too, we are not currently taking open enrollment students, right? We haven't done
Correct.
that. I think Dr. Means since
For 2 years now.
we are not taking open enrollment students in our virtual program. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
And some of that price point too, Edmentum operates a little differently compared to Pearson where it's like for a calendar year versus a school year. So you could have some situations where if you have a student who's gonna be finishing up like a following year, and maybe you're going, there's a cost savings that's potential there.
And just having that flexibility in the calendar, that makes sense. Thank you.
Other board members, questions or comments?
So
if it's a calendar year, would we then be able to offer like summer school classes?
We will be running summer school at Mendham, if approved.
And then I also have another question. I am currently a part-time WVA student. I couldn't get environmental science in my schedule. I somehow got approved. But is there a notification system that will be implemented like through this platform? Because Pearson very much leaves you in the dark unless you log into Pearson. Like it's its own little bubble. Like, is there a way that this system would be able to contact the students through like their email? Or is it also just in the bubble of the website?
Mr. Bunky, are you aware?
So with Champions program right now, we don't meet the amendment teachers. It's just a Tulsa district teacher. So when I communicate with my students, I don't communicate through Momentum. If I want to communicate electronically, I can either call them or I can email them with their school email. I'm not sure how that
With the live teacher.
with the live teacher. That I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not certain, Ellie. Certainly something we could look into. I do know that there's really easy access for parent reports in terms of how far they're pacing through the program, their expected completion date and that kind of thing. Certainly look into it, but I would imagine with a live teacher, that is the person kind of reaching out when someone's just kind of gone and missing.
So Allie, when you talk about the bubble, do you mean the proprietary webmail versus?
Yes.
Yeah, are you checking webmail?
If I remember Pearson's a thing.
Have you been getting calls from Ms. Olson at all? Yeah.
It's just every once in a while, I'm just like, oh. And then I do 2 weeks and then I'm fine. And then 2 weeks later, oh, I should do 2 more weeks.
It's like binging Netflix.
Not uncommon.
I got a question. So on that same note there, do we have data or anything to support there with where we're going from to where we'd like to go with Adventum regarding the academic outcomes? So it's not like I'm binging my education at the elementary, middle, or high school, where it's a click through, get to it, complete this, sit back for 2 or 3 weeks, do nothing, where it's a lot less self-guided. And I'm trying to figure out and kind of walk through my head here of, especially some of our students that do have, as Jessica said, have more needs than others that may be stuck on an island, just sitting out there, just completing stuff at random. Is there a goal? Are we gonna be put in a better position academically for these students that are gonna be on the same page and same par as our brick and mortar students?
Trying to understand the question fully.
It's an interesting dynamic. Because when you hear a story like that, or you hear like this dynamic of if there's a period of work and there's a period of not work, one would say if you're meeting standards, does it matter to a certain degree? Because I think inherently we kind of feel like it should. We know for the good of students, keeping on task, doing what you're doing every day as we encourage and are gently guided form letters to families would suggest that's the best way of doing it. It doesn't always happen. I also think in terms of, to speak to how things fit into schedules, sometimes students just operate that way. Or when I think about a student who, hey, they were in a spurt of day treatment for 2 weeks. And quite honestly, this was the last thing I could look at was logging in. But I'm gonna make it up. And Pearson understands that. We let Pearson know, hey, maybe lay off on some of the nudges and the communication while this child and this family kind of gets back to center, gets back to balance. Go ahead.
I think it's important to remember too what we will be looking at moving forward. It's not a coincidence that we're on the joint federal notification for outcomes right now. We're doing a lot of work and Hoist is doing a lot of work to move that It's been successful in the champions in terms of students being able to move through credits. It has a strong evidence research base for academic outcomes. And we're keeping a close eye on the pilot as well to see, are students keeping pace? Are they moving through it? The rigor was one of the pieces the project team looked into in terms of it's not what might be viewed as watered down in that way. We're keeping tight rein on the ability to customize courses to a certain degree beyond special ed modifications, because if that's not held on tight, you can lose rigor in that way as well. But we're excited about the potential that it has to shift.
Are there safeguards in there to, what's the word? I understand govern, but to make sure that it's the students that are actually doing the work?
Yes. And you'll see, you kind of get reports of how much time was spent on idle versus, actively engaged.
Oh my God.
Are we still offering homebound instruction for students who have medical issues that prevent them from going to school, or is this now what
This is often the path. Those are all point in time kind of case by case decisions based on the circumstances of the request.
Okay.
But it certainly has the ability, we have the ability, I would say even to a greater degree of momentum to personalize that given the continuity of it throughout the system.
Okay. But there are still some students who can access traditional.
Yes, we have a policy for homebound instruction.
Okay. Do you know when we're planning to expand the credit recovery program to East?
That's a great question. There's a team working on that right now. The goal originally was in the fall. We have a meeting, I think, next week coming up with them to see if they're in a place of readiness with how they position their FTE for next year. So it is moving forward certainly for the fall. I just don't have an answer yet on East for fall.
Okay.
For West.
Final question, kind of broad, but what do you see as the future of WVA, and what sort of resources do you need in order to make this a more successful, rigorous program for our students?
It's a big question. We've had a lot of discussion on this exact topic. Part of it is kind of initiated because of the outcomes that are happening. And there's, again, lots of different explanations and reasons for why we believe that is the case. One of the points in conversation, WVA is one of our charters. And in such, it falls under the IDT policy when families want to transition. And it, like Mr. Hoy said, it's often mental health, social emotional related. There are a lot of compelling reasons. And we use the IDT process, which is really in 2024, there are seats available as long as it makes sense in terms of the time of the year. The discussion around, would it make more sense? And there's a lot more conversations that need to be had around this to move from a school to a program that's virtual. And then you're not under just a simple IDT, but a team decision wrapping around how do we make that happen? How do we reinstate off of the tail end of a virtual? I think that has a lot of potential. We just have to keep having those conversations.
Thank you.
Ms. Emerald?
I just have a couple questions. Can you explain a little bit more, when you say a live teacher that the students taking or that are enrolled in WVA? So is that a live addendum teacher or a TOSA teacher?
So Edmentum, what we're saying is through Ed Options, which is a subset of Edmentum, that there is going to be like a teacher of record through Edmentum. That would be offering lessons during a week that students can or can't, their choice, if they wish to engage during those sessions, and would have that individual that they can reach out to for help, make appointments, if they need a little more. And again, locally, we have our guide teachers who are just like this extra level. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we hold community sessions at the Wellchester Library, so that can be drop-in if you kind of want to supplement your Pearson teachers with kind of a live local face.
They would have access to a live teacher, like when you say sessions, are those scheduled sessions if they want to drop into those, and then the rest of the curriculum would be, they would log in and go through it.
Like that self-directed.
Right.
Yeah.
So there would be sessions on a regular basis that are scheduled so that they can see the teacher live.
Virtually, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then how many courses do we currently offer?
Pearson? Oh, you might know that number better than I do.
It's robust.
Okay.
It's probably over
Is that, would we offer the same amount with this model?
We have access to their library, but again, where we're starting with credit recovery at least is very much core content courses required for graduation. WVA, since it's replacing their entire platform, I would imagine you will have a need to access more than how we're leveraging it in credit recovery.
You're hoping if this gets approved tonight, are you hoping for next school year? You would use this or what would you?
Well, again, it's being used in Champions quite fully. It's being piloted in credit recovery. And then if it were approved in 2 weeks from tonight, this is our first read, we would hope to run it a lab in the summer as well to start recouping credits this summer for students.
Okay, only other question. So if a student at East needs credit recovery, are they able to access it sort of through like the West WSD?
This is probably one of those scenarios that
Okay.
Mr. Hoist gets where is there a way we can make this work right now? And this is where it was kind of alarming coming in that there just really wasn't credit recovery.
I know there's like a couple in summer school, but
Yeah, which is essentially retaking the course with a different teacher. Yeah.
okay, thank you. I want to say thank you for all of your work. This was great. It's always great when we can save money and do better for students and for teachers. So thank you.
Dr. Worley.
Yeah, so thank you for this. I wanted to know with the Edmonton company, this costs very typical of what they do yearly, so they're not giving us like, I assume, a special intro rate that then becomes more like Pearson's.
They are giving us a special rate in terms of how we piloted it, the work we've done with them with Champions, right? So they sort of always sell you kind of that way. Like, oh, if you bring it to the board by this date, you'll get this rate of which you're seeing on the contracts. I would say this is fairly typical. I oversaw LTED in my past system for 5 years, and this seemed pretty aligned. The difference is it's a little bit more expensive when you factor in the live teacher,
right?
Which we will keep data on this next year in terms of how often are our students accessing that in WVA? What are the numbers in that regard? And then we can always reassess that decision every year based on the level of utilization of that.
That makes a lot of sense. I know when we used it to bolster the virtual experience, that often the live teachers' opportunities conflicted with the classes, the same schedule. So it was rarely, and they would be in a number of different time zones as well. So just figuring that all out.
Yeah, Dean was a really great advocate to maintain that because really from that student experience, we're trying to make it the least disruptive in terms of what our current virtual students have experienced. And that's what they're accustomed to right now.
I think it makes sense to do it, to see how it goes and what value. So I was also wondering, since there's been some piloting and some experience, the student perspective on this. How are the students who have gotten to use this platform responding to it? Do they say anything about it, or is it having heard some mixed about Pearson at times? Not, there are some good things about it too, right, for the right student. But what's the student perspective on this? Is this a good move from theirs? And maybe we haven't collected a lot of that data, but I'd be interested in that, even maybe from the experience in Champions about how they respond to the platform itself.
Like just anecdotally, like I worked with kids in Pearson last school year and I worked with kids in Momentum this school year. So like with Pearson, if a student tells me, hey, Mr. Bunky, like I got decimals down pat. I know how to do it. Why do I have to do this? In Pearson, you have to go through it. With Momentum, the student has the opportunity to prove their knowledge, demonstrate what they know. So if a student can back up what they say and meet certain benchmarks, Momentum can bypass that curriculum and you spend more time on practice to help with that. But it is able to more specifically meet students where they're at.
Right, which is great. Yeah, it does, because then that means that they're not feeling like they're just marking time. They're actually having some input in their learning process as well. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's exciting.
Live lessons too, like those live lessons, the kid can't attend it during the time they're recorded.
Okay, good.
So I guess they can't participate, but they can watch the recording at whatever time they want.
That's good. And then I guess the other, I wanted just to go back to what I see as the importance of thank you for looking for a way to have a similar platform across these different programs, because we know that students move through it. And so for the students, and I think also for their their caregivers, the fewer number of platforms that they need to figure out and support them in. I think that's a huge advantage about the kind of startup time, the familiarity, the sense of I did fractions here and now my, work is maintained and I can go over here and continue. That seems to me really valuable in this proposal. Thank you.
Any final board questions or comments on this item?
So I'll preface this by saying I know it's difficult to quantify students' learning, but is there a way to evaluate just how effective these classes are, or how much a WVA student versus an in-person student are learning, and if they're similar or if they're different?
For me, I'll be looking at the sheer number of credits attained and how they paced through it. So for us, like coming out of a semester, I want to know how many credits have been recouped and what classes are we seeing that, where is the need? So really getting an understanding, because if they're demonstrating proficiency, moving through the skills, if they move through a class, you'll get an idea of how successful that is for that child. I don't know if you have other thoughts, but.
We definitely have a subset of student that's maybe more than a subset. We're just engaging in any sort of learning or accessing any sort of learning, especially like in person, it's almost a non-starter, So that learning metric is key. No doubt, that is key. But as I've mentioned before, the metric almost goes out the window if you have students who are in a level of distress where they're looking to display their knowledge any way they can and to have that chance and to have that access. I mean, access is big. No doubt we want rigor. I think Pearson or an Admentum, I think there's rigor baked into that, from a distance, from what they're expecting from students. But in terms of an apples to apples comparison, yeah, it'd be interesting to. I don't even know what.
Well, we will also be able to see it, I think, to your point of how much more impactful is the live teacher versus where we're using it and it's our own district teacher. We would also be able to pull at our year end or semester end, our outcome data, not just credits, but in terms of performance in those courses. And is there a significant difference in the home base for credit recovery or champions where it's our staff supporting the delivery versus WVA where they're accessing that live teacher? So that could be another good data point to kind of show how much influence that piece of it has.
Just one last question, piggybacking off what Max said, and it's kind of where my mind goes. The difference between Pearson and Admentum, and I'm going to play devil's advocate and go the far end. What's the true difference between where we're trying to get to and save the cost with the difference between those same students going on YouTube for the same amount of time with a YouTube K through 12 program? That would be free.
Dr. Marble. I mean, standards, alignment, evidence-based, research-based. Like, there's a lot of pieces I could say, but you're a curriculum expert.
Yeah, when we were examining different options for the Champions program specifically, we did an environmental scan of what options are even out there and then looked to narrow it down into what's going to meet the needs that we have articulated. And you can see some of the things that were driving our decisions in the executive summary with what we held up against our decision analysis. So that was not one that we explored in great depth.
Just curious.
So we'll have 2 weeks for any additional board questions or comments in the interim. And then this will be back on as an action item in 2 weeks for us to consider. Thank you very much for the presentations. Our next item is a board governance in service. Discussion to review the board reorganization process pursuant to bylaw 0151. Discussion for proposed board retreat on May 9th. discussion regarding superintendent evaluation timeline and process. Could I have? Justin?
I move to adjourn into an end service. Do you need to call the times? Dr. Please.
Yeah. The time is 7:10 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn to an in-service?
I move to adjourn into an end service.
Second.
Is that Dr. Willie? Dr. Willie. Ms. Summers, please call them.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. Let's take a few minutes and we'll come on back.
You stay in the Zoom session for the insert.
Leave this soon.
Leave this Zoom.